Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I asked Christy Austin, who is a cognitive behavioral therapist and a mindset coach, and one of my dear friends that I have had the pleasure to get to know. I invited her to come today and discuss with me. We're going to both share a little bit about our stories, but also help us have some tools and understand how do we show up for ourselves? How do we show up for others as they're going through grief? Before we get started, I just wanted to read what grief is because I know growing up, I was never taught what's grief. It was something we all knew, but I don't know about you, Christy, but I don't, I don't think I ever learned what it was or how to deal with it. How about you?
Right. No, I don't ever remember talking about it growing
No.
up. I remember my grandma saying, I never want to look at an open casket. And as a kid, I was like, what's that even mean? You know what I mean?
Ah,
But that was the extent
exactly.
of it. Yeah.
Exactly. So we just want to create a space, whether you are here with us currently, and if you are, please, any questions that come up, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'll be paying attention, and at the end, we will give time for us both to be able to answer those for you. But also, if you are one of our replay listeners, we would love to hear your questions and comments as well, and we can get back to you at a later date on those. So, as we begin, grief. I looked it up, I Googled it, our great tool we have. It's the natural emotional response to a significant loss or major life change. It can definitely involve a wide range of feelings. And holy moly, isn't that a great way to capture it? I currently am going through grief myself for many different reasons. I recently lost a very close person to me. I call her my chosen mother. And she was my mother figure, one of the most important people in my life. And taking care of her and being on that journey was such an honor. But at the same time, it threw me into these feelings because you're caretaking, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, done. What now? And you kind of go through this reevaluation of what truly matters in life. I think experiences that are life changing like that often do that. Wouldn't you think, Christy?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You
Yeah.
find you find joy in every day after you go
Yes.
through something like that. Just the
Yeah.
mundane every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I realized, and this is something I really want to touch on today, is, what grief is, and then how do we do it well? Because I have realized, and even us preparing for this, looking back on my own life journey, I realized I have lost so much in life. And it doesn't just have to be a person. It could be a job. It could be moving. It could be a friendship. It could be for some of my friends walking the path of losing a child. All of those major life things. And looking back on my life since 2010, I lost my father. Then I met my ex-husband in 2011. 2012, we got married. 2014, I lost my best friend to cancer. Then 2016, we decided to divorce. Then 2017, I picked myself up from Toledo and moved to Cleveland. 2018, got recruited to move to Chicago. Then in 2019, so it was the beginning of 2018, 2019 came. My grandmother passed away, my grandfather passed away, my brother passed away. Then I got engaged, I got unengaged. Then I moved back to Toledo all in 1 year. Holy
Wow, that's
moly.
yeah.
And what this experience of being an entrepreneur, being in this space of having time to grieve, really set me up to show me that I probably never processed any of that because I'm a get it done girl, get it down now and in 5 different ways. And I just pulled myself up by my bootstraps. And in transitioning to be an entrepreneur, I realized there was so much that I hadn't processed. And it's like, how do you deal with this? Now I'm in this pain of literally some days nothing makes sense. People will say things to me and I don't even hear. I feel like my heart has been ripped open and it's like a layering thing. And it's like, how do you even show up for yourself? How do you try to show up for others? Because let's be honest, everybody is having loss right now. I don't know about you, but I get on social media and every day I'm seeing somebody that has lost someone or a job or something. And it's like, how do you honor how we are feeling, show up for others, attempt to, because we're not even showing up for ourselves? And how do you navigate this crazy thing? I once heard it called, it's not a step one, step two, step three. It's like a corkscrew. You're like at step 10, then you're at one, and then you're at four and three and two and seven and all in between. And it's like you feel that way. So how do we, from like a mental health perspective or a behavioral perspective, do this well?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And we know that there's not one specific
Mhm.
cookie cutter formula. Like everyone grieves very differently. And even when a husband and wife, for example, lose a child, they will grieve very, very differently. And so there's not a pat answer, but I think there's some don'ts that we've talked about
Yeah.
along the way, which we can get to, but it's like, don't stuff it, don't
Right.
avoid it, don't suppress it, don't drink
Mhm.
it away, don't all of those things. And I often say to my clients, the only way through grief is through it.
Yes.
And it sounds simple, but it's so intense and it's so painful that we all want to do the things to go around it. How can we shortcut this? How can we make it quicker? Because the grief cycle is about 3 to 5 years, which is a very long time.
Wow.
So while it doesn't feel the same at year 4 as it did at year 2 or year 1, but really the grief cycle is about 3 to 5 years, depending on if there was anticipatory grief and we knew this loved one was whether there's a death or a loss in some way. And
Hmm.
that's the other thing, Martha, I never knew until I sat through this class in grad school. All loss is grief in some form.
Yeah. I
We've
could
been
see
taught.
that. Yeah. I could see that. That is wild because it's like you have all these emotions that happen, even if it's just like moving to another town. right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're losing familiarity, you're grieving jobs and relationships. I've even seen women or men that have lost a body part, maybe to cancer, to whatever, an accident of some kind. And there's an intense grief that goes along
Yeah.
with that loss. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and how people grieve, like you said, there's no right or wrong. It's just make sure you're going through it. Like me, I probably didn't. I probably stuffed it way down and I did a disservice to the people around me because I didn't realize how bad I was hurting. And then you have collateral, of course, that you have to deal with, which is a whole other subject that I'm sure we could go into.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I remember in my own grief journey,
Mhm.
so in 2005, the phone rang, and back then we had phones that were attached to the wall and had a coiled wire around them, right? So I ran into
Mhm.
the kitchen to answer the
Yep.
phone, and it was my realtor. And she said, "Hey, want to let you know I canceled the contract on the house that you were buying, and our house was sold at the time." And I was shocked, like, "What are you talking about? You canceled the offer on the house?" And it was dead silence on the phone. And she said, "Have you talked to your husband?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Why don't you talk to him and then we'll chat later?" And click, that was it. And I was like, "What in the world's going on?"
Oh
Well,
my.
that afternoon, my husband came home from work, and we had been married about 9 years, had three kids at the time, three little ones. And he shared with me that day that he was very sorry, but he no longer wanted to be a husband and father. And we had had kids young, and he was just,
Mhm.
that wasn't part of his journey. And he wanted to start a new journey. And he made his best attempt to apologize. And that was it. He moved out within days. I was a single mom, staying at home with the kids at the time. And so all these questions are going through my mind. And that's the interesting thing about, we often have this primary loss of a person, but then there's all these secondary losses. Like for me, now I'm going to get a job because financially I have to provide, and where am I going to live? And I'll never forget filling out this apartment application, and okay, I can do this two-bedroom apartment. We got this. Like, here we go. And the woman said, "Okay, I just need proof of income." And like, I was in such a state of shock. Like, that's common sense. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
in such a state of shock. I was like, "Oh, yeah, proof of income.
Right.
Like, I want a job." You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Like, oh, yeah, that's helpful, right?
right. Like even if you have a savings account, don't have a job. And so, yeah, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, who's going to watch the babies when I go to work, and where am I going to work, and all of these things. And am I going to become a statistic of the state, and all of the things that you think about. And so those first weeks were just shocking. And what was interesting about that was that at that same time, my dad had been battling cancer for about 4 years, and he had done treatments. And within a month of when my husband left and we divorced, the phone rang again, ran to the kitchen of my two-bedroom apartment this time. And this call was from my dad, and he said, "Chris." So he called me Chris. He's the only person that calls me Chris. But he
Yeah.
said, "Chris, uh, I went to the doctor today, and unfortunately, with the symptoms I have, there's nothing more they can do. They've exhausted all the treatment options." And he said, "I'm going to call in hospice, and it'll probably be days or weeks." And I was just
Mm.
floored, because these are my two best friends in life, like
Yeah.
father and grandfather to my children, and I was just devastated. And I remember in those days, I don't know if you've felt this, but my heart hurt so bad. I
Mhm.
remember asking my friends, "Can you die from a broken heart?" Like I wasn't eating, I had no appetite. People thought I
Yeah.
had a terminal illness. I could
Hmm.
not eat, forget to eat. Your mind's just going so much.
Hmm.
And the toll that grief takes on your body. Have you experienced
Oh,
this?
yes. Yes. I lost 6 pounds in 3 weeks in the month of January, and I'm not a big person already, and so um and and when you said people thought you had a terminal illness, it's so interesting. It makes me think of people often don't know what to say or how to support. And something that happened to me was, losing 6 pounds in 3 weeks. That's a lot for me. I go somewhere and someone immediately, what's going on? You look awfully skinny. And it's like, not, hi, how are you? Is that what's going on? Nothing to like ease into it. And when you're already in that fog of life completely changing and you feeling like your heart is ripped out, they say the worst things. Yeah.
Yes.
Another person told me, wow, you look awful. What's happening? I'm like, wow, I can't catch a break. And it's like, I know their intention is not to hurt, but it comes off that way. And it just kind of makes you feel worse, right? Like, and it's like, how can you even have a courageous conversation when you're mentally not there anyways to say, listen, I'm going through a really hard time right now and this isn't helpful for me. I wish people would extend grace more and kindness more to realize that we're all going through something,
Yes.
and that's part of the conversation today. Like, how can we show up for others? How can we show up for ourselves too?
Yes. And
Mm.
that's so funny. I had such a similar experience where people would come and they were concerned and crying and what are you going to do? What's going to happen to the boys? And they're I felt like I had to comfort other people in some level and it
Mhm.
was exhausting and draining.
Wow.
Older ladies giving me marriage advice about what to do in the bedroom and
Oh
all
my
this.
gosh.
It's so crazy the things that people say and just
Yeah.
and all of the things, and it's not helpful. And
No.
I don't
No.
know about you, but I learned so much through that time. Like one simple thing was I would get cards to people, which were really precious and amazing, and people would put gift cards in them, all
Mhm.
these things, and they'd write long letters. Well, I don't know about you. I could not even read. Like I couldn't
Mm-mm.
even comprehend. My concentration was out the door. I was like,
Yeah.
read one, two sentences. That's it. That's all I could comprehend. I love to read and like I couldn't read through my whole grief process. It was too
Yeah.
much to absorb.
Yeah.
Mine just can't take it all.
No, you can't. And yeah, you can't even understand sometimes what you want to say. Like it's wild. I After I had had some of those experiences that I shared, I opened up my email one day, and I always like sending people something like if they're going through a hard time, like thinking about you or whatever. And there's this organization, so I'm not getting paid to promote this at all. They don't even know like I'm mentioning it. But I sent them a thank you note because they sent this email out. It's called GiveSunshine.com. It's an amazing organization that truly wants to support the community and people as they're journeying through life. And they sent out this email that talked about grief. It was like the headline, going through grief. And then it did this beautiful story about how it's not just about losing someone. And when you're in this place of they built the scenario and image of just being out on a mountaintop by yourself. Like that's what it feels like. Or like your heart being crushed. Like, can you feel die from a broken heart? All of these things and telling different scenarios. And it said, if you don't know what to do or how to support someone, it gave four simple things. One, just be there. Oftentimes, people don't know what they want or what they even need. So if you just go sit with them, sometimes that's all you need. Two, check in, but be mindful that when you ask, how are you? They probably don't know, and they're probably going to give you the blank, fine. Whereas if you ask, how's your day? Or some creative type of question that doesn't like connect with their how you're feeling, because who knows? And then third, offer practical help like a meal or cleaning or even running errands and getting groceries. Because when you're grieving, did you find this that when unmundane things like going to get groceries is now hard? Even sometimes
Yeah.
getting dressed is hard. And just having someone that might be willing and able to do that might be helpful. And then last, send a thoughtful gift. And I recommend Give Sunshine all the time because they're little tiny creative things. Like I found them through COVID. And I sent to all my team that I was serving this box. It had little succulents, it had a candle, and it had something else, I think some cookies maybe. And it said, life sucks, SUCC without you. And it was like a play on the succulent. So it's like they have really cute things that aren't expensive that you can send and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. So that's something that we thought we would share of what would be helpful if you aren't sure how to show up.
Yes. Yes. And one of the unhelpful things I learned going through it was don't say, if you need something, call me. I'm here for
Oh,
you. Because
yeah.
that person does not have the cognitive ability to
Mhm.
know what they need to pick up the phone to call or to
Right.
text. Just do it. In the words of Nike, right?
Right.
Like
Just do it. Yep. Just take a
just do it. So
meal.
just do one
Yes.
of them. Yeah.
Yep.
Send a gift card, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just show up, just go. They're not going to turn you away. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, you showed up. Like, I feel so alone. And then now here you are swooping in and helping someone just being there. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you have any tools that your clients have found helpful that could definitely maybe help our listeners and maybe help them to be able to process something that they're going through?
Yeah, seeing clients over the years, one of the greatest tools, there's two things that I've seen be really successful.
Mhm.
And one is, I already mentioned this, but when we grieve, we have a primary loss, so husband, father, whatever that is. But then we have all these secondary losses. So yes, we're grieving the person not being here anymore. And, death is so final. Maybe it's divorce, whatever it is. But we have all these secondary losses, and we don't realize those secondary losses on the first day because our brain is in the denial shock mode. And so
Right.
as time goes on, we start to go like, I remember when my husband left, he made coffee every morning. It's just a super simple thing that I would be like, man, his coffee was so good. Like he just made it
Oh.
just right. It was so nice to wake up to and have
Mhm.
coffee. And then 6 months later, I was invited to a wedding, and I was like, this is so weird to go to a wedding alone. So these are secondary losses,
Mhm.
like, my coffee maker and my
Yeah.
wedding date, my plus one, and someone to sit and watch my favorite shows with. Like I remember
Mhm.
holding the remote going, I don't even want to watch their favorite shows because it reminds me of them and it's just weird. And so these are all secondary losses. And I think that's one of the reasons that grief lasts for so long. One is because these people are near and dear to our heart. You can't just
Mhm.
replace them. But two, we keep realizing these losses, they made the best banana bread and
Yeah.
man, I won't have that again. And so
Mhm.
I highly recommend as you're going through your grief process to keep a list of those secondary losses, and they'll come up on occasion, and you just simply write them down, write a little blurb about them, write what you miss. And that's a really good way to acknowledge the grief,
Mhm.
to externalize it, and to move forward.
That is
And so
such a,
I've really watched my clients as
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said I've really just seen my clients have huge success by having those lists and externalizing those feelings because then we're not avoiding or pushing down or suppressing.
Wow. That is such a great thing. It reminds me, yes, I didn't do things well in the past. I'm trying to do them well now and learn things. I had a counselor once say that our feelings are like a sunset or a sunrise. You look at it, you're like,
Mm.
oh, that is just beautiful. And if you can allow your feelings to pass that way, you'll get in and out much quicker than if you just stuff them. Because I grew up in a family, we weren't allowed to feel and think and do all the things. So, like, I was learning as an adult in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, how to process my feelings because we were always told, nope, no crying, nope, no feeling, you don't have an opinion. And so it was really hard. And so now trying to honor all those things that I'm feeling, that sunset or sunrise really resonated with me because, yes, you feel like sometimes you can't breathe even, but it passes. And you had another great explanation whenever we were preparing for this, and I'd love for you to share like how you explain grief and feelings.
Yeah, so I equate grief to a tidal wave. And so, just like the waves of an ocean, they go in, they go out, they go in. And grief is in. And when it's in the beginning, it's in a lot and it's very intense. And I remember days of being like, oh my goodness, this is so painful. Like, I do not know how I'm going to live with this amount of pain and function and
Mhm.
raise three kids and work and all of the things. But what I would notice is that grief would go out like a tidal wave. And in the beginning, it would just go out for an hour. Like I remember literally being like, oh my gosh, I've had an hour that I'm not thinking about this. This is
Mhm.
amazing. I feel so much better. And as time goes on, it will go out even more. And so, year two, year three, year four, the tidal wave is out quite a bit. And it'll come in once in a while, but it primarily stays out. And so for me to get through some of those beginning days when the pain is so intense and you can hardly function, it was going, okay, the tidal wave is going to go out. Like, yes, this is so intense today. Today's a hard day, but I know that at some point it's going to go out and there's going to be a reprieve and I'm going to laugh and I'm going to be able to think and
Yeah.
it's not going to hurt as bad. And so
Right.
that really kept me going, that rhythm.
Mm. That is amazing. And I truly felt that in my soul when you told me that because I'm like, yes, I'm not as much on the outward yet because I'm still in it. It just happened. But I have seen those little reprieves and I'm like, oh, like today is a great day. And it's usually usually like I either start the day well or it's a hard start to the day. And then it flips in the afternoon. But each day as it goes on, it gets easier and easier throughout the day. Today is a good day.
Good. I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So we had some questions come in. Um, One of the questions is how do we eliminate the stigma about counseling?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Yeah, of course, being a therapist, I think that's so silly. I'm like, the healthiest people have been and are in therapy, coaching, getting the support, learning emotional intelligence. I've always thought that we should have a high school class like health, but that's mental health because there's a lot of practical things you can teach, and we all
Mhm.
we all want to get better. I also hear it called mental fitness, and I love that as well. And so I think, really what can we do? We'll cultivate the change that we want to see and be transparent about our own need for therapy and what it's done for us, and continue to transform the culture by being transparent and encouraging those. Like, it's healthy. It's actually healthy. Those that go to the doctor for checkup annually, all the checkups, like that actually brings health. But yet when we go to mental health, it feels different somehow,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I always say everyone needs a coach and everyone needs a counselor. You happen to be both. So that is so exciting. And and
Yeah.
I swear by
Go,
that
go.
because usually they do different things, right? Can you briefly
Yes.
say like the difference between a counselor and a coach? Because I have found there are grief coaches that help people find amazing healing. But it is very different.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool
Yeah,
to know.
yeah,
So
I'll
I
have
would
to
say the
connect you.
differences between, yes, so interesting.
Yeah.
The biggest difference, and I think it would be personal to coaches always have a specialty, but so for me, what I see is with counseling, there is a lot of emotional healing that goes on, and looking at irrational core beliefs and negative thoughts and all of those things, learning to reframe them, healing from the past. I think that counseling is a little more past focused, where
Yeah.
coaching is more future focused. Like, we're writing goals, we're setting
Right.
goals, we're reviewing our goals every month. We're drilling them down into task, uh, and then we're assessing, hey, this month you didn't get your goals done. What was the barrier? Was it time management? And so
Mhm.
we're looking at very specific barriers to those goals to really help that person reach success.
Yeah,
So I think those are two different, past and future focused.
right.
Feeling and the goals are a little different as well.
Yeah, and I think just also opening up the conversation like we're doing today, trying to squash that stigma about counseling because I think coaching, like you mentioned, it's futuristic, it's helping to build vision for our lives. And really it's just an approach. And how do we open the conversation? How do we bring awareness, especially in this heavy thing of grief, no matter what you've lost, whether you've lost a person, a relationship, a child, a job, a place you lived, whatever you would like. But I think having the conversation and not being afraid of it, and also educating ourselves. Like, if people haven't ever gone to a counselor, ask your friends. Say, hey, have you ever gone to a counselor? And seeing their experiences, that always helps too.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. Another question that came in is, are there things that people can do that don't have a strong support system? I know we mentioned the processing tool that you had of um, primary losses of the person or the thing, but then the secondary, that is so powerful. Are there any other things that you found are helpful if someone doesn't have a support system at home?
Absolutely. There's some support groups such as
Mm.
Grief Share. They often
Okay.
meet in churches and communities.
Mhm.
There's divorce care. And there's some specific groups like that that are run by volunteers, really well-meaning, amazing
Mhm.
people. And so those can be very effective. And I
Oh.
also think journaling, I think that's like a simple tool that we often overlook the
Mhm.
power of, but I think there's a lot of power in journaling because again, we're recognizing emotions and we're, externalizing those emotions so we're not stuffing them. And so that could be journaling, writing. I find that some people are more artistic, so they like to draw in their journal pictures. If you're more verbal, I mean, you can
Mhm.
record, you can have a verbal journal,
Yeah.
but the most important thing, and if you don't have that support to sit with you, like in your dark moment, is to just continue to externalize those feelings and get them out so you're not stuffing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you mentioned. So, journaling has always been a sticking point for me. I could never do it for whatever reason. I don't know if it was I was afraid of what would come out. I'm not sure. But something that I learned is you cannot be grateful and depressed or sad at the same time. And someone shared with me, why don't you do, I'm so grateful for, because I was having a really hard time being in the moment. And they said, I'm so grateful for, and list just 3 to 5 things for the day before. And what that does is you have to remember the day before. So you have to be in the moment. And if you're having a problem with journaling like I did, you start with, I'm so grateful for, and it shifts you out of that sadness cycle also. And it puts you in this position of gratitude to where the blinders start coming off and you can see the bright sun. You can see the green grass. Because what happens when we're all in this fogginess of loss, you truly everything seems dull. At least it did for me. I don't know. But that's another way to journal if you have an issue like I did. Another resource I found, um, there is this website called grief.com. And I'll put all these resources that Christy and I are mentioning in the resources on YouTube whenever I upload it, and in the information if you're getting the replay. But it's grief.com and it has every kind of loss. It has everything. I was going through it last night and it is an amazing resource. I don't know anyone that's ever used it, but it really has great things for you to be able to connect with. Also, celebrate recovery. Even though sometimes it is focused on addiction, it can sometimes have divorce care in it and grief areas as well. I have seen different churches have those things. And it gives you a great way to focus on something greater than you. Those are some other resources. And then another resource that I found, there is a book local to Toledo. Katie Maskey, she is a wonderful person in the Toledo community, and she wrote this children's book called Your Way is Okay. And I recommend this for everybody. I went through it with my little sister with Big Brothers Big Sisters. She recently lost her mother as well. And it tells you every emotion you could do and it illustrates it. And it's like, it is okay. Like, no matter how you do it, it is okay. The point is doing it, like we've mentioned throughout this conversation, is don't stuff it. Don't just keep trudging through. Like, really sit with it and process it and move through it. So do you have
Yeah.
any other pearls, any other information that we might be able to share with our audience?
I think the last thing, I like how you said, show up for others, just be there. You don't even have to talk. You don't, sometimes it's just sitting on the couch, in silence, and it's just that support, but also how we show up for ourselves. And grief, they've done studies and they've watched people's breath when they grieve. You actually breathe more shallow when you're in grief for like that first year. And so there's all kinds of studies related to that, but you need to take extra care of yourself and be kind to yourself and recognize this is just a season. It's not forever, but oftentimes people in grief, they're more tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just more exhausted and deep breathing's good if you know some of those, just really to get that extra oxygen. But really being kind to yourself and telling yourself, I love the name of that book because it's like, that's okay. Like, I
Yes.
don't want to go out tonight. And
Yes.
that's okay. Like, you don't have to. I can't. I remember I worked at a job and they would play this radio station with all these love songs all day. And I was like, I can't listen to this. It just triggered me all day long. It's like,
Yeah.
and that's okay, And so do what you need to do. This is a season, but give yourself grace and be kind to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Um, I know we have a couple people. If you have any questions specifically, you can drop them in the chat. Um, But it has been such a pleasure being with you, Christy, and all of you that have been able to join. Just a reminder, if you joined late or if you want to catch the whole video, we will be doing a replay soon, so you can catch all the information. But the most important thing that we want you to take away is you are not alone. There are plenty of people that would come sit with you or be with you. And sometimes we do have to go outside of ourselves to ask because oftentimes people um, don't know how to show up. And so hopefully this was helpful. You were able to take some things away. We did have another question come in. What do you recommend when you try to sleep and you wake up in the middle of the night and grief hits you over and over? That's so common. I'm in that right now of just waking up. Last night I slept 1 hour and felt like I slept all night and I just was up and my heart was racing and I'm like, I need to sleep. So I
Yes.
feel that. I feel that. And so do you have any tips or things for that?
Yeah, well, I always say do whatever you can to get sleep because sleep's so
Yes.
foundational to our emotions. You know, everything, our emotions, everything looks big if we're tired and everything looks different. So do whatever you can to sleep if it's melatonin, you know, whatever you need there. But also just from a behavior standpoint, don't lay in bed and I feel like I don't know about you, but I feel like when you're laying in bed and your mind is racing, everything is bigger and more intense and scarier and all those things. And so get up, I would highly recommend like adapting your favorite space, a big comfy chair, with your blanket, and that's like your spot just in general, but go to that space and do some journaling, do some deep breathing techniques, do something if you need to get your mind off of it, whether it's whatever, watch some videos or read if you can do that. But don't allow your mind to just race and make things so big because that's directly affecting your sleep. And oftentimes, if we can get up for a little bit and then go
Mhm.
back to bed, sleep specialists, I don't even know what that would be, but they talk about when you can't sleep at night, get up for a little bit. It's okay. Like, and then go back to bed and you're ready by then because your mind isn't spinning.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
That's true. I know for me, my nighttime routine is so important. So at like 8:30 at night, I will put some lavender oil on my feet. I will go and do my facial, like I have this crazy nightly routine of doing my skincare, and it's just really relaxing. Sometimes I'll do sleepy time tea if I'm still feeling wired around 8:30, 9:30, so that it can just help to calm me. And then also like reading a book before. So those things have
Yeah.
helped me before bed, um, so that it can really relax me.
Yeah, wind down. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. And then also, they say, I have not had experience with this. They say that if you shut off screen time like 2 hours before you go to bed, it hasn't impacted me like that. I can watch TV till 9:30 at night, but I think the more important thing is like what I'm doing to help myself relax, whether it's hot bath, it's candles, like sometimes engaging the senses help you to realize, okay, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I can relax now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the rhythm of it is good when you have a time every night that
Yeah.
our bodies by nature are very rhythmic. So going to
Yes.
bed around the same time, getting up around the same time, neurologists will say that helps with migraines and all kinds of
Mhm.
headaches. And so be rhythmic with your sleep routine
Yeah.
and your body will start following the signals.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Christy. Thank you for all of you that joined and for those that will have the replay. If you have questions that we didn't address, put them in the comments of the YouTube and we will address them in some time. But thank you. Know that you are not alone and we appreciate you joining and being in this journey called life together. We will talk soon.
Thank you.
Yes.